Hey everybody, it's Brennan, and today we are talking all about the different types of rentals: short-term, long-term, and medium-term. Stay tuned, because if you've ever wanted to know what type of rental is best for you as a real estate investor, this is going to be the episode for you, and you're not going to want to miss it. Hey, before we get started, I want you to drop a comment below about what you're most interested in: short-term rental for STR, medium-term rental MTR, or LTR for long-term rental. Which one are you most excited about, and do you want to try most? Drop your comment now. Hey, I'm Brennen. If you don't know anything about me, I left Microsoft years ago to start helping people directly one-on-one with their real estate needs and investing, and to have hopefully a bigger impact on their life. Super happy that you're here today. If you want to be notified of all of the new videos that I drop, be sure to hit subscribe right now. And if you find this video helpful at the end, I'd love for you to like the video as well. So let's start off first by defining what these different types of rental lengths are. So short-term rental typically refers to anything that's rented out less than a month. I really think about short-term rentals as, the weekend stays or maybe a week-long stay. It's those types of rentals where you could host up to probably 10 different guests in your property within a given month. A long-term rental is on the opposite end of the spectrum. So think about that as multiple months in a row, typically about a year. A year-long lease would be more of a long-term rental, and it might go for actually consecutive years. And then last but not least, a midterm rental falls right in the middle. So I would consider a midterm rental probably 30 days or longer, or multiple months in a row, kind of like an extended stay. And so we're gonna hit on that today as well. So if you're interested in that, be sure to stay tuned for that one also. Now for me, I've done all three. So I have 3 Airbnb properties that are all short-term rentals. The one in Maricopa, Arizona actually sometimes fluctuates to a medium-term rental because it's often rented out by workers who are visiting the city for multiple months at a time. And so they'll actually stay there in a medium-term fashion. I have 3 long-term rentals in Kansas, close to where my parents are. So those are rented on year-long leases. And then my 2 other Airbnbs in Seattle and Palm Springs are very much short-term rentals, where it might be only weekend stays. The nightly minimum is typically 2 to 3 nights, and there's somewhere between 5 to probably 12 guests in any given month. So I've had experience with all 3, and I'll lend that experience here in this video to help you make the right decision about what is best for you as you start to think about investing in your rental. Okay, so when people are dreaming about making the big bucks, they often start with short-term rentals, because in short-term rentals, you're making anywhere from about 2 to 5 times more than you might in a long-term rental. And that's because you can get more guests in the property in any given month. Short-term rentals tend to have super flexible day-to-day arrangements, and you can adjust pricing based on the demand, the season, and the availability. It won't come as any kind of surprise that this kind of property thrives in tourist hotspots, but this can mean that there are seasonal fluctuations and dips in your income. Generally though, you can expect a nice high influx of cash from short-term rentals, the potential to house up to about 10 sets of guests in your property in just 1 month. You're looking at about 2 to 5 times more cash flow than with long-term rental properties. The dream, right? Well, not necessarily. Taking a hearty bite out of that cash is all the new furniture and appliances you're going to have to buy to furnish and decorate the property, plus the bills you'll be paying, and the property management company, cleaners, and other outings. The truth is, short-term rentals aren't quite as passive as they might be perceived. It can be more of a hotel business than it is real estate. They require constant management, and you may have to deal with nightmare guests, trashed apartments, complaints, and worse. Short-term rentals can also be more risky from a regulation standpoint. There's no guarantee that your city's regulations won't unexpectedly change, leaving you stuck with the property. One of the main draws to short-term rentals, aside from the hefty income, is that you can actually use and enjoy your own property, making the most of it by taking vacations and visiting however often you want. Are you thinking short-term rental is the right move for you? Drop a comment below and let me know if that is the type of property that you want to invest in and use your rental as. Okay, so now that we've talked about short-term rentals, let's take a trip to the very opposite side and talk about long-term rentals, or LTRs. So this is very different. The main main downside of an LTR is that you're going to make less money. The upside though is that you're typically going to have a stable tenant in the property for a year or longer. Now with LTRs, as we mentioned before, they're most likely going to be in somewhere like the burbs as opposed to somewhere like the beachfront, because you are renting them out to someone who needs housing for a long period of time, probably close to their job or family or a school. And so a long-term rental is more suited for a neighborhood like that typically. Now, while you have less flexibility with the long term because you're going to have a tenant in there for a long time, you definitely get a steady income, which is a really nice thing to have as an investor. You have more predictable, steady income, whereas with a short-term rental, you may be wondering if you're going to be able to make your mortgage payment that month because you don't know what kind of tenants you're going to have. So if you want a more hands-off approach, long-term rentals can be great because you'll be able to screen your tenant, get them in place, and then typically they just live in the property and there's not a lot of maintenance that you have to do necessarily. Now, don't get me wrong, you're still going to need to fix the toilet if it breaks. You're going to need to possibly have a property manager if you don't want to do those household items and you want them to find the handyman and hire that out. But in general, you're going to be a little bit more hands-off and have that predictable income coming in. You still want to maintain a positive relationship with your long-term tenant and make sure they feel comfortable and happy, but they're going to take on the expense of furnishing the house and also paying the bills, something that you have to do as the landlord if you're operating a short-term rental. So some of the cost is going away. For my long-term rentals specifically, I do have a property manager, and so we pay them a percentage of the rental every month so that they can maintain the property, they can respond to the tenants, and then they can organize any of the fixes that need to be made as they're coming through from those tenants. Now, the only bad news about long-term rentals is the biggest upside of a short-term rental is the biggest downfall of a long-term rental, and that's being able to visit your property. So with a long-term rental, you're not going to be able to just go on a whim to your short-term rental and be able to enjoy it as a vacation. And that is to say that you probably couldn't even do that with a short-term rental if your calendar is full and you're actually running it as a business. So that may not be that much of a downside, but you won't really be using that property. It's purely an investment and an asset that you're keeping and using as a business asset, basically, if you have it rented out, and hopefully it's bringing you some passive income each month. Now that we've broken down the pros and the cons of the long-term rental, I'd love to know, is this the one you're going for? Leave a comment below and let me know if you're going for an LTR in your portfolio of real estate investments. Okay, let's take a breather and talk about medium-term rentals. If you're not sure either short or long-term is quite right for you, say hey to medium-term rental properties. These fall right in the middle. They can still be housed on Airbnb, but just with a longer minimum stay, anything from 10 or more days up to a year. Generally speaking though, a medium-term rental is defined as longer than a month. This type of rental can be super popular in areas with transient workers who have to move around a lot and want a comfortable space they can call home while they're temporarily living in that city. Medium-term rentals offer a balance of stability and flexibility, but be warned, they probably won't generate as much income as short-term rentals and still require more management than long-term rentals. So falls right there in the middle. It definitely can be a good choice if it's something where you have a rental property in a city where there are a lot of transient people or traveling nurses, for example, where they want a comfortable place to stay and land while they work, and then they'll move on after that. Now that we've broken down the pros and cons of each STR, MTR, and LTR, I'm gonna ask you, what do you think is right for you? Well, I'm gonna be a little bit annoying and say there's actually no right answer. It really depends on what your lifestyle is and how much time you wanna invest and how much money you wanna invest. So here are the ways that I would think about it. If you have a property in a high demand area and you're feeling really ambitious, you don't get scared by the idea of guest communications, turnover, and you want to go for that really high profit, then short-term rental is probably a good fit for you. If you have a property in less of a desirable or touristy area, you hate the idea of communicating with guests all the time, you want your time management to be very low, if you're too busy in your profession to actually manage something day to day, then long-term rentals are probably the right decision for you because you'll have more time to do the things that you need to do or work at your job as opposed to working on your rental. And if you want to dip your toe in the middle, then probably medium-term rentals is going to be the right for you, where you can can balance both and still get a good amount of income from your tenants. Thanks for joining me today. Whether you're an active manager or a passive investor, there is a rental strategy for you. Hopefully this gave you the pros and cons in a nice, digestible way so you understand which might be best for you. Whether you're just starting or you're a seasoned pro, there's definitely ideas out there that you can implement and make more income, make more passive income to hopefully live the life that you love. If you're more interested in getting into the short-term rental business and you don't know where to start, be sure to join me at my free webinar, Short-Term Rental Investing 101, where we're going to go through all of these items so that you know exactly where to start. You're going to be able to save time, money, and hassle, and I'll be able to connect you to an agent, a real estate agent in the market that you're looking at, who can help you understand that market and the investment potential there as well. This is not something you will want to miss. If you like this video, I'm so happy that you stayed until the end. Please hit like, subscribe, and ding that bell to get more updates from me about all of these real estate tips and short-term rentals. I'm super happy you joined today. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.